If you feel like you got stiff ankles and it's limiting your ability to squat, move the way you want to, you're probably trying a lot of calf stretches, wall ankle drills, and things of that nature. But if that's you, you're really missing the boat on what it takes to have good ankle mobility. There's so much more that goes into having good ankle motion. There's several joints throughout the foot complex that need to be addressed in order to maximize your mobility. I'm going to teach you what those joints are in this video, what motions you need to improve, and what exercises are best to get those improvements. These will be the last ankle mobility drills you'll ever need. But before we go into what those drills are, we first have to talk about walking. To improve all foot and ankle motions, you have to learn how to supinate and pronate the foot. This impacts every joint within the foot-ankle complex. When I supinate the foot, you have an ankle in plantar flexion. The subtalar joint, or your heel joint, is in inversion. The midfoot is supinated. The first ray, the first bone on the toe bones, is in plantar flexion, and the big toe is an extension. When I pronate the foot, I do have ankle dorsiflexion, and this is what most people focus on, but you're missing so many other keys that have to happen. The most important of these is calcaneal eversion. When the heel everts, it unlocks the mid and forefoot to flatten or pronate. So the midfoot joints pronate or flatten, the first ray dorsiflexes, and the big toe flexes. This supination and pronation action encompass early and mid stance when I walk. But there's one more stance phase of gait, and that is late stance. When I'm in late stance, my big toe extends and the foot resupinates. So if I want to improve my foot and ankle mobility, I have to learn how to go through each of these phases of gait and restore the appropriate mechanics in the order of getting early stance, then mid, and then late. I like to start with this heel traction roll. This helps work on mobilizing the subtalar joint, and it allows you to drive heel inversion and eversion. This is the key ingredient to restoring both supination and pronation. Get in a kneeling position, take the web space on your hand, you're gonna grab behind the ankle bones and push downward on the heel. You then wanna slide back, but not so far that the base of the big toe comes up off the ground. You wanna keep that contacting. Then from here, you're gonna silently breathe in through the nose, and you want a subtle shift of your weight to the outside heel. Exhale, put the weight on the inside heel. And you're gonna just oscillate back and forth as you breathe. Make sure as you do this that you're not lifting the foot up or wiggling the knee back and forth. It's a subtle motion because there's not a lot of motion to begin with at this joint. I would do 2 sets of 10 to 20 reps per side a couple times per day. If it's getting easy, you can progress it to a standing variation where you're weighting yourself into the foam roller. This is still gonna create a traction effect through the ankle. You're gonna go through the same oscillations that you did with that move right there. The heel roll is great for getting early stance, AKA supination and plantar flexion. But it's difficult to acquire that in weight bearing and then progressing to mid and late stance. But the way we're gonna do that is by combining 2 things. The first of those things is foot contacts. We want to be contacting the inside heel and the base of the big toe throughout all of these movements that I'm about to show you. And the weight bearing can shift depending on what activity you're doing. But when you have those 2 points, it allows the foot to pronate segmentally as opposed to tipping, which is more common. So how are we going to drive these different stance phases of gait? We're going to choose activities where we bias the pelvic position associated with each phase of the gait cycle. Let's say my left leg is the reference. That is early stance, mid stance, which is more sacral nutation associated with IR, and then late stance. If you want early stance, then you better start squatting. The squat is going to bias early stance if you can maximize your depth. That's why I'm going to be using this ramp. We'll maintain that inside heel and base of the big toe foot contact because we'll be pronating from a more early stance position. What you want to do is you want to make sure your eyes are looking forward. You're holding a kettlebell out in front of you just a little bit. That'll make it easier to shift back. Silent in through the nose. As you do so, you want knees forward, butt down. Go slow. On the exhale, you're going to come back up, making sure you keep the kettlebell out in front of you. You'll want to do 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps with that specific squat. Mid and late stance are all about push off. So we're going to bias our exercises so we can push off in those various positions. For mid stance, you'll want to do a lateral squat. When I do a lateral squat, I want both of my feet flat and I'm keeping heavy through the inner heel and the base of the big toe. If I do a lateral squat to the left, I'm going to be working on mid stance mechanics on the right leg. Keys with the lateral squat is you kind of want to push through those points on the foot without tipping the foot like so, because when you tip the foot, the knee is going to cave in. That's going to limit your pronation. You're going to inhale, push towards the working leg. As you do that, you want a straight line from your foot to your knee, to your hip, to your chest, to your eye. Exhale, back to the start. If you get it right, you're going to feel both glutes working and then the quad on the loading leg. Most people will screw that up either with that foot issue I talked about or turning the pelvis away from the leg you're loading into. You want to keep your hips nice and square. The other issue that you'll see with that move is people bending way forward at the waist. You want to stay pretty upright and if anything, hinge slightly at the hips. Try 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps with that exercise before going to late stance. If you want late stance, then you want a forward lunge. Now the foot that we'll be mobilizing is not the working leg, but the push-off leg. Because we're working on late stance, we're going to lose that inside heel contact and push off of the big toe. And that's really the key to getting the last bit of ankle motion. So I'm going to step forward, push off the big toe, drop down into a forward lunge, making sure I look straight ahead, and then come back. You want to throw breathing in the mix, which I would. You want to think inhale, drop down, whole foot contact, exhale, push back. Make sure you avoid the common screw-ups of loading a lot into the back leg. You'll notice that if the hip is maximally flexed. So that's a person who takes a really short stride and leans back. That's fixed by pushing forward. Same song and dance, 2 to 3 sets, 8 to 12 reps. And really being able to master those moves and then progressively load them are all you need to get most of your ankle mobility. But a lot of people struggle with those because they are a bit more challenging. So if you get stuck anywhere within that progression, I'd actually check out this video right here because it emphasizes a lot of the mid-stance mechanics and it'll make sure that you hammer the foot contacts because those are critical to improving your overall foot and ankle mobility.